Welcome to another monthly portfolio update. If you are stopping by for the first time, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. In this video, I will share with you how much I invested in my brokerage account in July, how many shares I bought, and the value of my portfolio at the end of July. But as always, before I continue, a quick disclaimer. The information that I'm sharing is not financial advice. Before you invest in anything, please do your own research and make sure that you only invest in things that you understand. With that being said, I will dive right into my portfolio update. I will start with a recap of my June portfolio to show you the value of the portfolio and how many shares I had before the beginning of July. The total value of my portfolio at the end of June was $145,096.52. $144,757.36 was the market value of my investments, and the $339.16 was a cash amount. At the end of June, the total unrealized profit of my portfolio was $54,292.74. This was plus 60.02%. These are my holdings: 2 Vanguard ETFs and 2 BlackRock ETFs. VCN is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the Canadian market. It holds small, medium, and large cap Canadian stocks. I had 128 shares of VCN at the end of June. VFV is a Vanguard ETF that tracks the S&P 500 index. This is the Canadian version of a VOO. I had 392 shares of VFV at the end of June. XEQT is a BlackRock ETF. This is an all-in-one equity ETF that holds Canadian equities, US equities, developed market equities outside of North America, and emerging market equities. If you want to hold a single equity ETF that is globally diversified, you might consider looking into XEQT or its Vanguard equivalent, VEQT. I had 710 shares of XEQT at the end of June. XUU is a BlackRock ETF that tracks the US total stock market, and I had 382 shares of XUU at the end of June. I will now show you how much I invested in July and how many shares I bought. I bought 2 shares of VCN. The cost per share was $70.79. The total cost, $141.58. This is 9% of the amount that I invested in July. I bought 4 shares of VFV. The cost per share was $188.05. The total cost, $752.19. This is 45% of the amount that I invested in July. I bought 10 shares of XEQT. The cost per share was $44.83. The total cost, $448.32. This is 27% of the amount that I invested in July. I bought 4 shares of XUU. The cost per share was $77.97. The total cost, $311.89. And this is 19% of the amount that I invested in July. In total, I bought 20 shares, all the ETFs combined, and the amount that I invested in July was $1,653.98. This is $22.80 more than the amount that I invested in June. As you can see, in June, I invested $1,631.18, and in July, $1,653.98. The difference is plus $22.80. The total value of my portfolio at the end of July was $145,038.93. $145,033.76 was the market value of my investments, and $5.17 was the cash amount. At the end of July, the total unrealized profit of my portfolio came down to $52,915.16. This was plus 57.44%. As of July the 31st, I had 130 shares of VCN, 396 shares of VFV, 720 shares of XEQT, and 386 shares of XUU. Alright, let's now take a look at some quick details about each of the positions. I will start with VCN. The closing market price on July the 31st was $71.66. The quantity of shares that I had, 130. The average price, $45.54. The book value, which is how much I have invested in VCN, was $5,921.32. The market value was $9,315.80. This was 6.42% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for VCN was $3,394.48. This was 57.33%. Next, we have VFV. The closing market price on July the 31st was $186.29. The quantity of shares that I had, 396. The average price, $115.67. The book value was $45,806.35. The market value was $73,770.84. This was 50.86% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for VFV was $27,964.49. This was a 61.05%. Then we have XEQT. The closing market price on July the 31st was $44.80. The quantity of shares that I had, 720. The average price, $29.68. The book value was $21,370.10. The market value was $32,256. This was 22.24% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for XEQT was $10,885.90. This was 50.94%. Finally, we have XUU. The closing market price on July the 31st was $76.92. The quantity of shares that I had, 386. The average price, $49.27. The book value was $19,020.83. The market value was $29,691.12. This was 20.47% of my portfolio. The total unrealized profit for XOU was $10,670.29. This was 56.10%. July was a choppy month for stocks. My portfolio went from being up 60.02% at the beginning of the month to just 57.44% at the end of the month. This is a decline of 2.58%, even though I invested $1,653.98 in July. As for the S&P 500 index, it declined by 0.28% in July. This is the second consecutive month the index is ending in red. In June, it was down 1.10%. This month's return for the S&P 500 index is below its historical average return for July. Historically, the S&P 500 index has returned approximately between 1.10 to 1.90% in July. Recent decades have even shown stronger performance. Over the past 20 years, the average return for July has been around 2.2%, and over the past 10 years, the average return for July has been around 2.5%. There were some key macroeconomics drivers that contributed to the choppy market we saw in July. The AI trade cooled down as investors rotated out of momentum and growth stocks into value and yield factors. Geopolitical tensions with renewed US-Iran hostilities drove a sharp mid-month spike in crude oil prices. Bond yields also rose, reflecting renewed inflation concerns tied to energy and oil prices. Despite all these events and the volatility they bring with them, it's important to always stay invested. Although staying invested during market fluctuations doesn't eliminate risk, it can prevent emotional decisions that negatively impact long-term profits. If you are a long-term investor, stay the course and keep dollar cost averaging on your favorite ETFs, index funds, or stocks. Whether the market is up or down, you will end up doing well in the long run. Alright, feel free to leave a comment below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time with another update. Peace out.